Our News from the Hill segment tonight is Jared Kushner wearing out his welcome with the National Security Council. According to new reports from the Washington Free Beacon, Kushner has taken aggressive action to micromanage the NSC, overshadowing even recently installed National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster. So, are these allegations true? And if so, what do they say about President Trump's foreign policy strategy? Joining me now, Senior Director for Strategic Assessments on the National Security Council, Dr. Victoria Coates. Dr. Coates, thanks for being here.
Absolutely a pleasure, Liz. Thanks for having me.
All right, Dr. Coates, let me just get right to the crux of the matter here. We have a couple of topics we want to cover today. First of all, when it comes to the Syrian strikes, was there consensus within the National Security Council that these strikes should happen in the way that they happened and in the timing that they happened?
Absolutely. I mean, this was actually part of a long process that we had been going through, reassessing our Syria strategy more broadly, and that had gone through the normal NSC channels. And then when the chemical weapons attack occurred, and the president wanted some options quickly, we were prepared to provide them. He decided what he wanted to do, and the military carried it out brilliantly, I may add.
Right, and how much was regime change discussed here? Because I know that's been one of the main criticisms or worries or concerns coming from the American people, that it sort of seems like a lose-lose situation. Bashar al-Assad attacks his own people with chemical weapons. He lies. He's a threat. But if he's toppled, then that could create a vacuum for ISIS here. How much was that taken into account in this decision?
Oh, of course, that's a very serious concern, and the president's been very clear on this, that while this was a humanitarian atrocity that occurred, and I think the world rightly condemned the Assad regime for doing this, the interest of the United States here is the normalization of the use of chemical weapons. That when you have a rogue regime using weapons like that with increasing freedom, it normalizes their use for other bad actors, and that was what the president was responding to. That's why the targets were chosen that were chosen, and the action was taken that he decided upon. This was a response to that use of WMD.
Right, and what do you expect? What does the president expect from Assad going forward? Does President Trump expect Assad to back down now that he's been struck? Does he expect him to strike back? I mean, what's the next step?
Well, you know, the enemy always has a vote, as one of my old employers used to say. So it is something that Assad is going to have to calculate, along with his Russian and Iranian patrons. But in this case, he now knows that he has a commander-in-chief in the United States who, when he says, "I will not tolerate the use of chemical weapons," is going to take action that he finds rather painful against him. And so the hope is that he will recalibrate and change his decision-making process, particularly on the use of these weapons.
Right, a striking contrast, forgive the pun, to the previous 8 years, the administration before President Trump's here. Dr. Coates, let me ask you, the underlying strategy, the underlying foreign policy, national security strategy of President Trump, we the people, I think, are not quite clear on exactly what that is, because on the campaign trail, as you know, President Trump talked about opposition to getting involved in Syria. Now he strikes Syria with 59 Tomahawk missiles here. You're on the National Security Council. What does the shape look like to you? I mean, is President Trump looking to be the world policeman? Is he looking to be a neoconservative, a bleeding heart interventionalist, an isolationist? Give us an idea of what his strategy looks like.
Well, one of the things about President Trump is he tends to defy that kind of label. So I think I'm not going to apply a specific doctrine to him, but he's been very clear that America first does not mean America alone, but it does mean focusing like a laser on the United States' national security interests. And as he said in the inaugural address, you know, America is going to be a beacon, a light to the people of the world, that we are the aspirational nation. And if you believe that, you believe protecting the United States is the best thing we can do for the world. And so I think as you're looking for a uniting theme for his foreign policy, that really is it. And so if he sees an intolerable threat in the form of someone normalizing the use of these really horrific weapons that have rightly been banned by civilized nations, then he's going to respond forcefully. And I think you see the American people responding very positively to that kind of action, which is in our interests and very clearly explained as such.
Right, and it is the first and foremost duty and responsibility of the President of the United States, so it's good to see him carrying that out. Being accountable to that. Dr. Coates, let me ask you too, there have been reports, particularly from the Washington Free Beacon, about turmoil on the National Security Council, reports perhaps of Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, being overbearing or trying to micromanage. Is that accurate?
Absolutely not, to what I've seen. I've seen a council that's actually functioning extremely well under the very able leadership of General McMaster and Ms. McFarland, who's really held this group together through what obviously was a fairly tumultuous early period for us. But under KT's leadership and then now General McMaster's leadership, we've really held together and done the kind of background work that the president needs to make decisions in an orderly fashion. And that's what you saw play out last Thursday. I think that if we had been going through this kind of soap opera drama that everyone is reporting in the press, we would have had a much harder time coordinating and executing that kind of strike in a timely manner. So I would look at what we've actually been doing rather than what's being written about personalities.
Right, and one more question, though, about what you call the soap opera drama. I think everyone, we the people, are interested in the dynamic that goes into this, because the dynamic sometimes influences what the decisions ultimately are. Steve Bannon, it's been rearranged. The National Security Council rearranged. He's not on the council anymore. Why?
Well, I think Mr. Bannon's presence on the council, I'm going to take his word for it that he was there early days to organize, to get it responsive to the president, and that it's not a day-to-day sort of responsibility for him. Obviously, he can be invited to meetings, a range of people can be. That's at the president's discretion and General McMaster's discretion, but this is not central, has never been central to his portfolio. So I would just see this as an administrative change that came out in that recent presidential directive memo on the subject.
Right, and I guess whether or not it's soap opera or whether or not those reports is true, that would be something you would know, not I would know. One more question, Dr. Coates. This is pivoting a little bit. This is pivoting just a little bit to another topic, and this is the investigation into any alleged Russian ties between the Trump campaign or the Trump administration and, of course, Russian operatives. But when we're talking about the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Nunes went to the White House. He originally said he was meeting a source there, but it turns out it was national security staff that gave Congressman Nunes the logs of former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, her request to unmask the names of U.S. citizens whose names were collected incidentally when in surveillance of foreign targets. But was this something, Dr. Coates, was this something that the National Security Council knew about before Congressman Nunes brought it to everyone's attention?
Well, on that topic, I mean, the entire administration, but particularly the National Security Council and the White House, have just been very interested in the substance of this issue and getting to the truth of these allegations. And that's what we're going to stay focused on. And otherwise, unfortunately, I can't comment on an ongoing investigation.
Right, because I think a lot of people are interested in who told who here. Was it the White House that told Congressman Nunes, or was it Congressman Nunes who told the White House?
Well, and that's what we're just going to let the investigation play out. I mean, that's now in Congress's hands, and we all just would want to cooperate with that investigation and get to the truth, not just of that, but of the larger issues at play here.
All right, Dr. Coates, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Have a happy Easter.
Thank you, Liz. You too.